everybody, Ryan Olsen. Cool. Thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You can only have one every day for the rest of your life. What you doing and why?
Well, I think probably breakfast for the rest of my life, only because my wife makes an awesome breakfast spread. She knows how to make breakfast, and I am one of those like very blessed and very thankful husbands that has a wife that'll pretty much cook him like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But her breakfast, she loves breakfast way more than I do. Scrambled eggs, Egg McMuffin type thing, anything I dream of. She makes an awesome toad in the hole, which is just toast cut out the center, everything that you put an egg in, and then some cheese. Pancakes, blueberries, waffles, hash browns. I think that pretty much has, and then you have, fruits and everything, which is always great because you're going to need that. Coffee, right? I got to live with coffee in my life. Mm-hmm. I think definitely breakfast has the most options almost in terms of adding in any sort of dish or like ingredient you want. Sausage, chicken. We've even had like breakfast salad before, which is like, it sounds strange at first, everything, but like spinach, lettuce, you have like nuts and cashews, you have granola on that, and then you have like a maple syrup kind of dressing on it. I think a lot of people think that breakfast has to be like a few handful of dishes, but you can just be just as creative in the breakfast space. So definitely breakfast.
Well, you've officially made me hungry, to say the least. So, wow, that was a perfect answer.
Okay,
I think breakfast would be my choice as well.
Okay.
But man, I get hungry by the end of the day.
Yeah. Also, just the classic cereal. Just having cereal and milk. At the end of the day, I have that sometimes.
Well, I guess the question was like, you're not eating after breakfast hours,
right? Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
So. It's a time thing as well as a types of food thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're still going with breakfast?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, got it. Sweet. Desert island rig. You can have one camera and one camera accessory. We're not going to count like lenses. You need a lens or.
Okay.
I can't. I'll let you know if your accessory doesn't count, but.
Okay.
Because of course you'd get that.
So am I just documenting my time until I'm picked up or I die? What's happening?
Probably.
Probably the latter.
Whatever you'd make on a desert island.
Probably something with the longest battery life whatsoever. I would not care about quality and everything. It would probably just be a way to talk about everything that I'm feeling. I don't know. Probably like, I think of my very first camera. I think of my Canon ZR65, which cost like $1,000 back in like late 90s. And that was like a lot of money. But that thing could just shoot. And I remember the battery seemed to last forever. So, if I could rig that up to some sort of V-mount powered supply and just have that going, and obviously with the tape, if it comes with the tape in this, that way I have like Zoom and it has audio and everything. I think it would just be about documenting life on the island and everything. I would definitely not thinking that it would. I definitely think it would be a lot of fun and everything in terms of just like having that type of camera and that footage. Yeah. If it was a desert island situation, as opposed to, last thing I would care about is like getting a shot, like a comp or something like that, or like documenting the sunsets, or something. So
yeah, it'd be funny. Like this guy, like. We found him washed up on shore, and there was a full commercial shot. There was a full FX30. We don't know why.
Right, yeah. It was against the cruise line, which he got lost at, or something.
Right. There you go.
Something. What about yourself?
I like that answer. I've asked a few people that so far, and they will, understandably so, pick like their just favorite camera. But I like that. You wanted something that kind of matches what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That being said, what is a camera brand you will never buy from again?
Never again? Yeah. Oh gosh.
Or maybe just a camera brand you would never buy from, even if you haven't bought it from it before.
Well, I don't want to, I'm trying to think here. I really like the idea of trying out everything. I hear a lot of bad things, even though I'm pretty sure it's internet gumbo at this point in terms of opinions on Nikon. and everything. They're like, oh, it's a potato. That's all I hear, but I've never really shot on one, so I couldn't say that it is a bad camera or a bad menu system or what have you. And obviously, you know, it was Nikon now acquired Red.
Right.
And everything, so who's to say and everything. I do, though, have a love-hate relationship with Canon.
Okay.
And everything, like I just said that I would choose the Canon ZR65 for the Desert Island, but also at the same time, I don't know what it is. Like the codecs for me, when I've shot on C70s before, I don't know. There's something about it that feels so muted. So I don't know that. I don't know if it's the C log that they offer or what. My friend just got a let me see, an R5 Mark II, I think. And he was showing it to me, and I'm just like, it looks great, but it just doesn't seem like it's for me. And I love Canon lenses, but I don't know about the cameras. And I think that's, you know, I mean, I definitely need to work more with cameras, but I've always had bad luck with Canon cameras. So
Interesting. Canon's my choice too. No one else has said that either. It's interesting. People say the same thing about the muted colors on the Black Magic sometimes.
Okay.
But I've just heard that, and I also don't know anything. So
Right. My initial response is, well, did they try a LUT?
Yeah.
You know? And I think to
How long
myself,
did
then
you-
my applying the LUT to a Canon camera too. You know, oh, it's so muted. It's like, oh, well, are you adding the BT 709 or some sort of like creative LUT to it as well? Probably not. Probably not pushing it as far as it can go sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Canons, I don't know. When I see someone pull up with a Canon, I'm like, okay, fine, good. No, I don't think I'll ever pick one up, but if you know what you're doing with it, and you've been I trust that person. Like I know a couple people I shoot with, or we do audio for. They'll roll up with the Canons, and it looks just as good as anything else I've ever seen. So I can't hate either, but I think that would be my choice as well.
It's really about the operator.
Yeah,
You know,
the end.
in the end, it's the person who knows the ins and outs of the camera, knows how far you can push something, right? In one way or the other in terms of dynamic range or in terms of codecs or judder or whatever have you on the sensor. But I mean, really, you put a Canon in my hand, it's not going to look as good as my friend, like my buddy Addison's, he knows those cameras and everything. But you put a Black Magic in my hand, or something which I've shot on a lot, you know, it'll look better than someone who hasn't. So
I had actually been looking into using an iPad, the iPad mini, as your phone, because you can buy it with cellular, and it's just a little bigger than the Pro, the iPhone or the Pro Max or whatever.
okay.
But then it's like you've got your iPad. It barely will still fit in pockets, but mostly my phone is out or in a bag or something. It's not sitting in my pocket all day. And then if I do go walking or something and need a phone, like there's like Apple Watches or my girlfriend's phone. I don't know. It was just like a silly idea. I really bothered the AT&T people for a little while asking if I could make it work. And they were like, yes, but we're not going to let you.
Oh, yeah. Those jerks.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
What's up with that?
I don't know.
I'm just trying to beat the system, aren't we all?
They're like, no, we get someone like you every month asking this question or something.
Yeah, that's basically what they said. Is like, you think you're the first who's come up with this? I was like, no, but I'm not gonna be the last either. So
It's
let's do it.
Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I try at least?
I'm sure once I got into it, I would realize that was a mistake.
Right, yeah. Maybe they're doing you a favor.
As soon as like I put on the outfit that I have to like just hold my iPad or whatever
Right,
I'm
constantly.
with me.
Or you have like a fanny pack or a sling bag.
Yeah.
There you go. The sling bag would be okay.
Yeah, I'd
And
buy
then
a
you
sling bag
pull
that
that out,
fits
right?
it.
Everything. You have like whatever other audio gear. And it's like, hold on, I have to take a call.
Exactly.
You know, so.
That's a good point. It's like, so on set, what is best case scenario for crafty services? What do you gotta have?
It's got to be like, for me at least, some sort of like protein bar or something like that. Something with like a lot of calories and everything packed that I can just put in my pocket and snack on or something. As much as I used to be a fan of the fruit snacks, which is the classic industry standard
Yes.
and everything for, crafty and everything. Right now, I just feel like I just realize so much more how much more sustenance you need and how much energy you need. And sometimes, I'll take like one or two of protein bars and I'll put them in my pocket and just save them for later because I know I'll be eating them throughout the day. But yeah, I would have to Go with that.
And what is the worst?
Oh boy, I feel like an apple is just a really bad decision on for. I mean, you have to eat it right there. I mean, you can't go to set and be crunching down on an apple in between takes. You know, if you don't finish the apple, you've got to set it down somewhere. You've got like a half-eaten apple hanging out on set. You like keep on picking it up and then eating it. And then you got to wash your hands because those things get sticky, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like apple slices is different. Right. But just an apple, I feel like that's so much work on a set, and you've got to be so mindful of being like, where's the apple at? Where did I leave it? Did it get knocked over? Is it going to get knocked over? I don't know.
So you're worrying about apples as much as you are the gear that you got in your hand.
I just don't want to eat, like take 2 bites and somebody knock it off an apple box or something and be like, well, I can't eat it. Or, we're really busting or something changes. We have to move set. We have to move lights. We have to change angles. And then, you got to worry about your apple. You're not putting it in your pocket.
Yeah.
And everything. So, yeah.
I think they're called On-Set Black or something like that. It's like a clothing brand that it's a little expensive, but I've been thinking about maybe investing in something from it because they'll have jackets that have jacket, shirts, pants that like have filmmakers in mind, like a pocket that literally can keep food cool, like a little cooler or something,
Sure,
or like this pocket perfectly fits a quarter for your,
that's funny, yeah.
For your mounts and stuff. And I don't know. So maybe they've got the answer for us.
Designated apple pocket. Right.
I'm gonna
the food
them
and not the phone.
And say, can you do a custom order for apples for me?
Like you put some cooler lining in there and everything, so it's nice and cold.
Yes.
So sweating in there.
Right. So speaking of clothing on set,
yeah.
What is a must for you on set for what you're wearing?
Sure, yeah. So 2 things. Most of the time, if I'm a director and everything, I wear something nicer. Everything. I feel like it's important to show up on set looking nice because I feel like it's the job. You're in charge of it looking nice and it coming together. And so you're the guy with the vision. And I think style kind of plays a part in that when you're on set. Not to look like, not to distinguish yourself or any sort of like issues there with like, I look better than other people. I just think that, you should present yourself as somebody who has a little bit more there on set. But if you're like a cinematographer or if, you're on a swing set and you're doing like these multiple positions, I think jet blacks, set blacks are kind of the way to go. I usually wear like Prana climbing pants and everything, and then I wear like really nice black sneakers and everything because I'm on my feet all day, and then like usually black shirt, black hoodie, or if it's nice out, a black polo, everything. So I want to make sure that I'm comfortable and I can move a lot and there's a lot of range of motion, and it doesn't matter if it gets stained or I get dirty or anything like that. So Yourself?
Myself would be probably the right shoes.
Yes.
I learned that one the hard way myself. You're standing for a long time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can sit, but it doesn't feel like you sat, even if you sit for a few minutes and you have to get back up for another hour. I don't know. The older I get, the more my feet change and my knees and everything. And when we have a boom pole on set, I get in some funky angles sometimes, and it's like everything from my knees down to my feet just start to get uncomfortable. And I think I need to invest in some Dr. Scholl's or like some custom shoes, I think, at some point, so that I don't throw I'm already screwing up my neck with everything I'm carrying and the back in general with so it's like anything I can do to just be more comfortable and still look the part. That's my answer.
So a good question is do you go to the gym? Do you work out? Do you try to build up strength so that way you can do these things for longer and everything, and not put a crick in your neck if you're holding the boom for a long, awkward amount of time?
That's a great question and something I need to be working on. Not as maybe in the last couple years I've fallen off from that, but I am learning that it is time to do that. And because I don't want to throw something out. I don't want to be in my 50s and 60s and then I'm screwed up because I was on set for however many days every year, and it's like catching up to me in weird ways. So I probably do need to focus on those areas more at the gym. Now, the other half of Gaussian, PJ, he's like in great shape. He's got the abs and everything, so he can be the boom op, and I'll be the sound mixer at the cart. So that's my answer for that for now, is hire somebody or work with somebody that can until you get your stuff together.
Get somebody who's much more fit than you to do all the strenuous work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the first AD, carrying the camera and saving the load. Well, even the cinematographer, like when you've got the shoulder rig all day, that stuff's heavy, and I'm sure you feel what we feel on our shoulders. So
yeah, even with the oh my gosh, the easy rig,
mm-hmm.
the easy rig and the isolation arm or what have you, and you're holding that. I mean, like all that is strapped to your back to get that bounce out. But after a day of that, I still feel it, in my lower back. As tight as I can make that vest on me, I still feel that at the end of the day. And so it's just so smart to take care of yourself, especially in this field. You are lifting very, very heavy things. So
yeah, grips as well. I mean, they're just constantly hands up in the air and carrying stuff. I mean, all of us really.
Yeah.
I think we could all be taking care of ourselves a little bit better and thinking about that. And it's definitely on my list of things to get together. It's like I've been shopping around for the right strap to put the sound bag on that works for me, and like like how to wear a backpack correctly for your, like, it's like buying the right shirt, the right fit for you, not just the right general size.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It seems so silly until you start to feel it. So
yeah,
it's important. If you could make the sequel to any film, direct it, what would it be? And write it, I suppose.
Oh my gosh. Boy, that's a tough one. I would really, I don't know, thinking about it just off the top of my head, I don't know if you've ever seen Brick by Rian Johnson.
No, I know Rian Johnson though.
So it was, his initial film was called, I don't know if it was a student film or his first film. It was called Demon Golf Ball from Hell. And basically that's just to make this really short, some thief breaks into some rich guy's house who's like practicing his golf swing or something like that, and he kills him. Someone steals all of his stuff, and this golf ball follows him and bounces and everything and drives him mad. And like there's a great scene where he's like driving, and then the ball's like bouncing outside his window as he keeps driving. And it's a really great shot. And with that movie, he got funding for Brick, which went to Sundance. The only year I ever went to Sundance, Brick played. And it's with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And it's basically like a neo-noir set in a high school, but it's completely straight-faced. And it's a murder mystery, and it's real good. And I always thought just carrying that story on with him, kind of like a Philip Marlowe, Humphrey Bogart, like Philip Marlowe, Sam Spade, Raymond Chandler-esque storytelling would be great just for different stories as he like grows up. I don't know if I definitely wouldn't call it Brick 2 or Brick Again or something dumb like that. But I love noir and I love neo-noir, and I think that was such a good concept. He finds himself in like more situations like that. So like a detective, I guess. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as, gosh, I don't know if I can remember his name. Thinking of the movie, but definitely a sequel to Brick, I think.
Cool. I'm gonna have to watch that.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, I love. That's one of my favorite parts of these interviews is people have mostly said films for answers like that I haven't watched. I mean, because everybody has this like this niche film or this something that sticks with them, but it's like not Star Wars, you know?
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
Which is super cool, and it gives me like, okay, now because you said that, I'm gonna have to go down like a noir rabbit hole now after this.
Oh, it's worth checking out. Yeah, so. I saw it on my birthday in the theater, and it was a film print, and it was just a wonderful gift. Just watching that thing because it's just such a good movie. So I don't know if a lot of people have heard about it, but definitely worth checking out.
Did that get you into that genre, or was that kind of a thing for you already at that point?
That was already a thing for me. I saw it 2006, I think. And then I was in college at the time. And so I had been interested in film history, and we watched noir movies in there. And I really fell in love with detective films and, murder mysteries and the books of Raymond Chandler. And I don't know, just something about it. I like the idea of, I love stories about someone being murdered and then somebody trying to find out not only what happened, but why it happened. And more than what and who, but why. And I think that's always very important in any story, is what did happen. And most of the time it ends with somewhat of a boring exposition where they're like talking for 5-10 minutes, explaining everything. But I just love the thrill of it.
Yeah, we might have to have a conversation after this, because we have a film on our page that you can look at called How to Make a Hot Dog. And it is not a noir, okay? But we've had some conversation about doing a sequel or doing a series with it, because we really enjoyed the main character. He's kind of like this Patrick Bateman type of very serious about whatever he's doing. And,
Right.
But the other thought was maybe we do a series of how to blank. And it's the same guy doing all these unique things. Basically, How to Make a Hot Dog is, he's kind of a Nepo baby that thinks any hobby you have needs to be turned into your personality, your YouTube channel. Let's make money off of this.
Sure.
Let's monetize everything. It's kind of like a commentary on that idea in general. Like, everybody needs to tell everybody what they're doing all the time. And if you get into anything, you have to go down the gear rabbit hole, and you have to know everything about it. But it's kind of taking like the fun out of having a hobby. So this character, Marcus Blasttoucher, he has a YouTube cooking show, but he can't cook. But he can afford the fog machines and the fancy lights and the crew. So it's just this beautifully shot cooking show where he makes a pretty crappy hot dog, and the only person he's fooling is himself. Anyways, we've talked about doing how to solve a crime, and it's just another one shot or one location rather than a kitchen. Now it's like a detective's office, and he's going into it, and he's like, maybe there's flashbacks, and he's just arguing with himself the whole time, and he plays almost every character, every trope of a whodunit within his own head.
Oh, that'd be
until
funny.
he just solves the whole thing, but like for what,
Right.
So anyways, we don't need to get into it here, but I need the right people to be a part of something like that, because I wouldn't want to screw that up.
Sure. It reminds me of I just had, creatively, my friends and I had something called So Delicious It's Dumb. When there was like those like tasty videos that came out, it was like, this is how you make lasagna. And it was like these really kind of like flash forward videos. It was like a few years ago. My friends and I wrote a whole bunch of short scripts, which was called So Delicious It's Dumb. And it was basically a vignette of somebody's life who finds a recipe of a food, and then the food like grossly affects their life in some way. Like there was like somebody decides to like rob a bank, another person like goes crazy, another person, and it's all because of this recipe and this food that they made, but it's like shot in like a really fun, goofy, tasty style. And then they go mad or something afterwards because we hated those videos. And we're like, there should be more of a story to these dumb videos. So that's funny that you bring that up, yeah.
I love it. That is so fun. That's totally up the alley of the type of things I want to make, because while we are mostly working for other people, scoring films on set, sometimes we need a breath of fresh air. So we're going to do like 1 to 2 short films or narratives of some sort a year that we just produce in-house for fun. We just save up some of the Gaussian money and get it done. So maybe we'll be calling you up if we do our noir thing, because
I'd love that.
There just aren't a lot of people in this area that like know that genre super well, right? Like a lot of like short films end up being like horror comedies, the ones that are easier to pull off.
Right.
But when it comes to, I'm sure you know this, when it comes to like a more unique genre, you have to think in different ways, and you have to know what has already been laid out and what would be a copy or what wouldn't. And I haven't watched everything in that genre, so I wouldn't want to miss something or be like, dude, you just made blank again. I'm like, oops. That's my biggest fear. So.
My first short film was a neo-noir. It was called Say Goodbye, Grace. And we spent like 25, 30,000 on it. And I mean, it was a huge production. I mean, very large. I mean, it was like 14 night shoots. And I mean, like we had like a hospital. We went actually to a container yard. We rented it out and everything. We had all these offices. We got these cars, police cars, and we had decals put all over them. Everything. I'll send it to you after this.
Yeah, please do.
And everything. But I love noir and neo-noir, I think. I mean, yeah. You have to know those genres and you have to know what you're stepping into. Otherwise, it's going to kind of be... it's going to feel like something's off if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, like a very serious person would probably have a lot of trouble making a comedy unless it was played straight, played differently. And then somebody who, has never been in love would have trouble making a rom-com. Mm-hmm. You have to know where you're going, what genres you entertain, and those ins and outs of that type of story.
Absolutely. Today we're going to talk about what you've been up to, hopes and dreams, who you are and why, your favorites, your least favorites, stuff like that.
Sounds great.
So why don't we start with just a Cliff Notes version of you as a creator, what you're up to, and how you got there.
History or what I'm doing right now?
Let's start with what you're doing right now,
okay.
And then maybe you can kind of tell us your journey up to this point.
Okay. Right now, I'm finishing up a lot of little documentaries right now for Missouri Humanities. They hired me out last year, and they're just small little documentaries about festivals and the history of festivals around the greater state. And other than that, I've been working on a lot of commercial projects, been working on a lot of basically spec work, trying to get some spec work together. I have a idea for like a 90s Super Nintendo kind of love letter that I want to do, which should be a lot of fun. And then also I've been talking with some people about making a short film that I've written recently.
Very cool. The guy who just walked by, Seth, he's the video game guru. So you guys are going to have to talk after this.
Oh, okay, all right.
He knows the history of all things gaming. And
that's awesome.
I mean it. So this worked out.
Okay.
But that's awesome. Sounds like you have a lot of cool different projects going in different directions right now, which is nice.
Yes.
Because doing the same thing over and over and over can get old.
Yes.
Sometimes I like that. I have been an editor in like corporate situations where it feels good to just crank them out, know what's coming, and just clock out at the end of the day. But you recently went freelance, you said, right? Mm-hmm. So how has that been? Like, is it exciting working on all these different projects for you right now?
It is exciting. It's the winter months right now when we're shooting this. So winter months are usually generally pretty slow, and you're just doing a lot of outreach currently. But I do have a lot coming up and a lot planned. I'm very excited for the variety of projects that I'm going to be doing, or at least I'm in talks with right now. A lot of narratives. I have a really exciting opportunity coming up here to do an ad which has absolutely no dialogue. And I'm very excited for that because that's kind of like my old bread and butter. That's how I first started. I made ads with no conversation. And it was just the visuals. And usually it set up a really good punchline at the end. And then I have a lot of like strange product shots, and I got some corporate heads, and then, just to pay the bills, I have some real estate stuff coming up. So
cool. What is your favorite type of project to work on, all things considered?
I love narrative. I love commercials right now, and I love any sort of like short narrative work, documentaries or a short story. Really enjoying working with Missouri Humanities right now and coming up with the story for these festivals.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Earlier we talked about clothing on set, and you said if you're the director, you want to dress nice and reflect what you want the project to look like. What do your projects look like? What makes them yours?
That's a good question. I like immersion a lot in terms of like a narrative. I mean, that's kind of the goal of what we do, is that we want somebody to watch the video to be fully immersed, right? And so that's sound, that's color, that's images. And I try so hard to keep the viewer interested and not wander off. And as I'm sure you know at this point, and a lot of other creators and filmmakers right now, attention spans are shrinking. And it's harder not to have just look at the phone for just like one quick second. There's that pull there. So I'm trying to make it as interesting as possible within the parameters of the narrative. As much as I want to whip out a real cool shot all of a sudden, rig something to a pin and have a POV of it scribbling, it's not going to work if it doesn't fit the narrative. So there's that trade-off right now. I think we live in a very exciting time as a creative because I feel like anything goes right now. You can pretty much do any sort of media you want. I've seen people take old film and like recolor them, and they're adding pictures back in. They're adding like these old, video camcorders footage. I think it's really exciting, and I think we can only make it more interesting if we're utilizing all the tools which are available to us right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we might be in the wild west of AV, right? In general, not even just video, but like live music, live events, things like that. I'm not surprised at how surprised I can get, right? You can wake up and it's like, oh, now there's holograms and people are watching movies like that. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's crazy, but I'm not like, yeah, sure. Yeah, right. There is.
I would also say in terms of like my work looking like my work, it's definitely very colorful, and there's a lot less. I want to incorporate more movement in my work, but right now I do like a lot of shots that are locked off. Okay. I like adding composition, like lighting within a static frame. Movement is great, and I need to use more of that, but right now you can just tell that it's just shot by shot, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good thing, I think. Like knowing what your thing is and knowing what you can work on too, and like marrying those together and just growing from there. When you said attention spans are kind of, we're losing them, mm-hmm. Do you find yourself fighting with that more or using it to your advantage more with the type of things you're making?
Again, I think it depends on what you're making. I do create content for some businesses, and that is a lot quicker cuts, a lot more interesting of cuts and camera movement. Sound effects are used almost wildly, I think, to make sure that the viewer is constantly drawn to it. But documentaries, I have to fight for attention because it is a longer type of story, and shots are held longer than what the average content indulger would like, maybe. So I do try to make it both entertaining as much as I can. If I can cut, I will cut. But I won't use it so haphazardly, I feel, almost, if it's just content.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Okay.
So are you on team make... like I guess long term, we all deal with the jobs we're getting, and sometimes it's going to be vertical, sometimes it's going to be standard, whatever it may be. Sure. Are you on team make video horizontal again if you had to pick at the end of the day, or are you not?
No, I think, yeah, I very much like horizontal still. The best thing ever, my old creative director at an old ad agency I worked for, he goes, your eyes are left and right, not top and bottom. He goes, so you should be viewing left and right. And I always thought that was really interesting way of phrasing it. I do like the vertical format. I think it has its place. And I think that, you should embrace that. There's a lot of things currently to embrace that are new creatively. And I think you should not fight against it. I think you should, again, use both, but for whatever project deems it necessary.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We should use what we can to our advantage around us and not yes. complain, because I find myself sometimes complaining a little bit. It's a good point of what you said about like our eyes are or horizontal, not vertical. I'm gonna remember that and tell people that the next time they say anything, because it's kind of the same with audio and what we do, right? Like we spend so much time putting speakers in the right spots and getting, this full immersion of like Dolby Atmos, because that's how the world is. But like really at the end of the day, we have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 ears. And sometimes I guess I would say some of my favorite movies now are the ones, like you said, that feel like true immersion. Sometimes the longer shots are held because this moment is uncomfortable and we're not going to just cut out of it so you can feel less comfortable as the viewer. A good example is one of my favorite movies, No Country for Old Men.
I love that movie.
It's, people don't, maybe they do, people don't, conversation isn't around the sound of that film very often, but I love it because it just feels so empty and feels so like, it feels like the Wild West. It feels like a bunch of crap when there is a bunch of crap. When he's going through stuff, you feel like you're going through stuff. There aren't wild cuts or added sound effects with the punches when, it's like, it sounds so real. It looks so real. And I think there's something to be said about that in today's climate. It's like, it is good to use what we have around us to our advantage, but I don't think the classic film and how it was always meant to be, I think there's a reason for that, and it does feel refreshing when I watch something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And, to the point of No Country for Old Men, those sound effects are deliberate. That when he like chokes out the guy at the beginning and it's the rubber soles squeaking against the floor, that's a struggle, not only seeing the marks, but you hearing that, and then the tension of him setting down the wrapper on the countertop when he's talking to the guy at the gas station, and it uncrinkling, and that's all you hear. You understand what's happening in those scenes just by those 2 shots. It's choosing it and knowing how vital the sound effects are that you're going to be using, and then holding on it, right? As you said, like it's making you uncomfortable, that it's just kind of unfurling and it's uncrinkling, and then they just look at each other and you're like, oh no, something's about to happen.
Yeah, there's something about that realism versus this in-your-face stuff that's always happening right now. But we enjoy that too. Mm-hmm. But it just feels like an old breath of fresh new air.
Sure.
Because we'll get a mixture of things where it's like, okay, for the trailer, we need all the time, right? Like, you know what I mean.
You want to draw them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then for the actual movie, it's like way slower pace. We're not going to just rumble. We're not going to do like a sub rumble under every scene just because. So
right.
At the end of the day, I think we can agree it's about like being tasteful and drawing from the things that we can.
Right.
And that's what we're supposed to do as the professionals, is know when to do one or the other.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what you were doing before your current endeavors. You said you worked for an agency. Mm-hmm. Were you ever working full time as a creator for a company, or did you always do like contract type work?
Yeah, I did a mix of everything. Just quickly, I made a public service announcement back when I lived in Nebraska that got me a lot of attention. It was on the dangers of texting and driving. And then an agency saw that and they hired me out. So I became actually the director of video productions at a pretty early age for an ad agency, and got in very late, worked there, and then that folded up, and then moved on and started my own kind of company on the side. And I did commercials then for like companies, and I would just kind of like reach out. And then I did a short film back in Nebraska, which was a neo-noir film called Say Goodbye, Grace. Then I moved to Georgia to be with my then girlfriend, now wife, and that got me a job at a regional home builder, and I really cut my teeth there. That short film, Say Goodbye, Grace, basically got me hired there. 3 years I worked at that place, and I put out 3 videos a week for 3 years, and then there was a span where I had to put out a video every single day until he said stop. And so I learned real quick about videos and lighting and how to turn things around and what works and what doesn't work in terms of attention spans, in terms of content creation, and also content indulgence. And we decided to come to St. Louis because my wife is from here, and we wanted to be closer to family. And so I got a job at a marketing agency here, and I just recently left that, and I'm doing freelance now. And so I had a lot of people who were interested before and everything, and now I'm following through with a lot more work, saying that, hey, I'm freelance now. And I have, again, like just a lot of things in the hopper coming up.
Well, congratulations on all the big change.
Thank you.
It sounds like the future is bright for you. You've done a lot. Now it's time for you to like get back into saying yes and no to different things, honing in your style. I mean, that's where we're at as well. I went full time with Gaussian starting just at the new year of 2025.
Okay.
I was working at a TV station as an editor there.
And
doing Gaussian in the evenings and on the weekends, and eventually I was like, I have to put my all into this, or it just might not be worth doing at all.
Right.
Because it's like, why would I want to go half into my dream? And there's never a perfect time to make the change.
Right.
But you got to do it, or you didn't do it. And I didn't want to look back at the end of the year and realize that I hadn't been doing everything I wanted to do.
Or look back on your life and say, and regret never taking that leap or trying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we're
good
both
for you.
taking, thank you. Yeah, we're both taking a little bit of a leap in a way, which is, I think that's super cool. So with your future, what kind of skills do you hope to hone this year with the different projects you're doing?
I would like to become a much more thoughtful cinematographer, because I'm a director cinematographer in the realms of cinematography. I really need to, on set, I really need to slow down, because I feel like there are times when, not every single project you work on is going to have 10 crew, 15 crew, 20 crew, whatever. Sometimes it's just you and a handful of people, and you got to work quick. You got to move fast. You got to get the lights up. And then you have to find the composition. You have to make it work. And I think we can get lost in that. And if you just take a moment to breathe and relax and find what you're looking for, I think you'll be happier with the end product. So that's me as a cinematographer. And as a director, I really want to get back into doing comedy, like narratives. I mean, I started off making comedic commercials, which kind of, except for the PSA, but after that, I did a lot of comedic commercials that I enjoyed a lot, that people enjoyed a lot. They would tell me, unprompted, unprovoked, they'd be like, that is so funny. And that's always such a great compliment, is when somebody compliments you without you asking about it, without you asking about the work or seeing the work. They'll just say, you did that was funny, or that was great, or I loved that. And I love people, and I love relationships with people, and I'm always trying to find the humor, something that we can laugh about. And I would love to get back into doing more comedic work. So,
cool. Yeah, I know that feeling. I don't get it a ton, but I know the feeling is like this organic, just, you get it. You know what I mean? You got what I was going for, and that's part of the reason we do this, right? It's like to let others feel what we feel.
Yes.
Like when someone laughs at something that you wanted people to laugh at, like that's awesome. Or when someone cries, or someone learns a lesson because like in your public service announcement, you taught something. I mean, I think that's a big part of what we do, is like getting our feelings out to the people and successfully driving home on our goals and the theme.
Yeah.
So
it's understanding the inner workings of your emotions and how your emotions play with relationships, and then understanding how other people may react. It's being thoughtful, it's being compassionate, it's being understanding, and then saying, if I do this here, am I setting up this joke for here, so that way the punchline is greater? You're like constantly reevaluating and assessing how something will land or won't in any genre, right? And I think understanding how those relationships work and the emotions in relationships, complex or simple, it is really a valuable tool in our fields.
Absolutely. I used to have a little bit of trouble with that. I like to think I've gotten better at it, at least. I wouldn't say I'm super sensitive when something doesn't hit or work, but I used to just not understand when, like, for example, if there was a joke that I was like, this is good. I thought it out. It makes sense. It's just the right amount of witty for the screen, and then it doesn't hit and it's like, no, it is funny, and there are people who think it's funny. Why doesn't this work to a general audience? Or why doesn't this hit with the specific audience that seems to be watching this thing? And it's like, if I really believe in something, that's usually why I'm working on it. So I've put in the front end work to get it right? Whether it's maybe a short film with a message. And I want to find that baby of, I'm getting my message across the way I want to, but I'm also creating something that the audience is going to connect to. And that might not always be the way that I connected to it. Like, I might have to tell a slightly different story for them to get it the way that I got it. And I've had to come to terms with that. It's like, you have to find that baby between what you think works and what is going to work on the medium that it's being put on.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So do you have any thoughts on that, or any advice you'd give to somebody trying to like find that same point?
I think it's about being honest firsthand. You can't, I mean, like, I hear it all the time, but I think it rings true. You know, there's only one of you, and there's only one way you can tell your story, and that's through your perspective. So if you're like washing it down, if you're trying to make it not you, but from you somehow, I think that's a hindrance to your storytelling or whatever point you're getting across. I think you just need to be upfront and honest, and you can be raw at first, but then you'll need to refine kind of how to deliver it, right? Because it makes sense to you, and you may be able to express it well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people connected the dots to get there. So you're going to have to lead them, right? You're leaving like breadcrumbs. In terms of, you know, a commercial or a narrative, that's all it is, right? Is that we're slowly leaving you points that you can follow, or turning points or inciting incidents when you're writing a script that, you know, people are relating to. They're like, oh yeah, that's right, that happens. I would feel the same way. So at the very end, that payoff, that climax, that denouement, all of a sudden it hits, right? And they walk away and they go, yes, that story was about me, and I understand how that person, how that director made that and how they got there.
No, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense to me. So with that,
yes,
what are you thinking about on set? Like, before the thing's finished, when you're writing it, you've written it, it's done, now it's time to shoot. To an extent, you can make some changes on set, but you kind of have to go with what's there, depending on the shoot. How are you thinking? Are you thinking like a director that's overseeing like the vibe? Or are you thinking like a director that's just trying to get the shots done, and you just trust yourself from pre-production? What kind of mindset are you in throughout the production process?
I think most of the time as a director, I am really focused on getting the right performance from the actors, because I feel like that's ultimately what we're all connected to. And it's how they interpret the scene that will in turn reflect how we're feeling about the video. So I am making sure that points are hit, you know, subtle glances are made, or what have you. I want to make sure the performance is there. And I work with the actors in terms of, you know, if they want to get into, you know, well, what does my character want and what do they do? You know, I'll let them run with that, and then I'll say, you know, I think, you know, what would your character think if they did it more like this? Can you make that work? Mm-hmm. As a cinematographer, I'm thinking to myself, well, I should probably make this look real nice as much as I can that complements whatever's happening in the scene, or, you know, make this look like whatever's happening in the scene, the complementary side of it. So if they're like really angry, depending, you know, on the location and everything, maybe played down a little bit more, and there's more like window light hitting them than anything else. It just depends, right, on so many other things, the script and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. How are you with change in general? For example, I'm just doing audio now, but I used to do a little bit of video work as well. And I helped edit a project that the story was really put together in post. You know, like, it did not look like the script.
Okay.
And it like, in my opinion, I wouldn't have assumed it was going to look like that even during production, even after I just saw the footage. And that director was like writing it in pre-production, in production, and in post-production, and okay with that. Like, let's do the jokes 3 different ways, and then we'll maybe even cut up the first half of the first way, the second half of the second way, and the third, and then put them together. And I was like, I thought I was good at change until I worked with them. And I was like, wow, you guys are okay with like feeling it out until the very end. And that taught me a lesson, is that, okay, I need to get better at being okay with trusting different people to do their roles, trusting that, like, for the most part, you can't really make this alone, and you have to have different people with different skills. How do you feel about change throughout a production process in general, and how have you navigated that?
Well, whoever you're referring to, I want to meet, because I think that sounds amazing. I think change has to happen on set. I think if you come in very rigid about how things need to be, I think there's good things to that, but at the same time, you have to be flexible. It's a weird in between, because I feel like a lot of people think film is you show up with a script, the shot list, you get the things that are on the page, and then you leave. And I think it's so much more than that. I feel like it's what happens before the cameras start rolling and after the cameras start rolling. The accidents, the flubs, how an actor will say one thing differently 5 different times in 5 different takes. And I think it is, that meshing of it, of taking that all together and then putting a film together, because that's what it is. It's everything. It's absolutely everything you shoot and record. It's not just the lines spoken and the shots made. It is an amalgamation of the right calls, the wrong calls, the mistakes, and the things that went well. And whatever best serves the story the best. And, I think, some of the, if you look into like the behind the scenes or some like directors' commentaries on some of the more popular films, they'll say, oh yeah, this wasn't even supposed to happen. And there's a lot of that in there. And some of the times those are like the things that stick with you the most, because they felt real, or they transitioned to the next scene well, or whatever. So I think with change and accepting change and embracing it, you'll probably get a better product at the end, and the project will go a lot smoother, because people want to know, hey, this guy can pivot and be on their feet with problem solving, right? That's who you want to work with. You don't want to hear, this isn't going right, or we didn't get this, and then a flip out, right? That's stressful for everybody. You want to be like, okay, well then, if we can't get that, are there other options? Can we still shoot here? Is the time limited? Did they say completely no, or, whatever. We're problem solvers, creative problem solvers as well. So.
Yeah, so you go into a production assuming there's going to be change. You're ready for it on the front end. You're not married to, maybe there's some things like, it's got to be that way. We have to be that way to an extent, but you're ready for it, is what you're saying, on the front end.
Yeah, there's some line that's like, failing to plan is planning to fail. And then there's another line I just read it the other day. It was something along the lines of, plans are useless, but plans are everything. And I think, you show up on set, you have a plan in your head, and you know what you need to get. And I think knowing what you need to get is probably the most important thing when you boil it down to its essence. Be like, this person needs to say this line like this with this type of shot, not exactly in this spot, this exact way, with that exact shirt, with no cars in the background, with this streak of light. You're just working with what you have as much as you can, and you've got to be able to accept that.
Yeah, absolutely. Acceptance is huge. I'm learning in this industry in general.
You're not going to get the perfect thing, and it's important for you to realize that.
Yes.
I still haven't gotten the perfect thing. I don't know a lot of people who have gotten their perfect thing yet. Most of the time, at the end of the day, a lot of the creators that I've met and I've known throughout my life are like, oh, it could have been not what I wanted, but I'm happy with it right now. It's like, well, good. you're happy with it, and I'm sorry it's not what you want, but other people like it, and that's important.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a time that I've watched something with the creator or listened to something where they're like, they have nothing to say about it. Well, right there, it could have been blah, blah, blah. They always do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about off the court, right? Not just on the court change and how you create your vibe, your look, you.
Okay.
What before you've even thought about your day, or what are you doing at home in your personal life that keeps you creative, that gets you ready to be this person? What are you being more consistent and planning out your life outside of it, or are you more of like a let it fly type person so I can stay creative?
That's a good question. I'm kind of, I like to have a schedule sometimes, and sometimes I don't. Not sure exactly what you're looking for, but, go to the gym when I can, meditate when I can, especially before a big shoot. I will meditate, just kind of clear my head. In terms of just pre-production and just who I am as general, I wish I watched more films. I just feel like I don't have time, which is silly, but I really am liking a lot of shows right now. I'm also on Instagram and Frameset and Eye Candy, and I'm looking for inspiration, looking for creative things. If I have a really dumb idea, I'll just jot it down and everything. And then I have Milanote, and I'll just begin to pull images together and say, oh, this would be kind of cool to shoot. What about this? What about this? I also enjoy creatively, I guess, I do graphite pencil drawings and everything for my daughter and everything. And then, I don't know, just listening to the music and watching things on YouTube, like shorts or videos. I don't know, I just kind of take it all in when I can. Anything that people want to show me, pretty much in terms of like videos or, hey, you should watch this, or I'll pretty much do it. So I don't know, I just like to watch and everything. So
it sounds like you draw inspiration for video work from things that are outside of video a lot, right?
Oh yes, 100%. Yeah, I go to like museums. I think that's so important. Is that I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, a lot of my inspiration for movies and telling movies and narratives come from movies. I'm like, well, that's great. That's awesome. I feel like there's just so much more. There's such a rich tapestry of art forms and mediums to pull inspiration from. Love going to museums. Love paintings. Just sitting there or standing there, just looking at it. It's a completely different field. And I love to read. I love cartoons. I love comics and everything. I mean, I try to take in as much as I can. Graphic design too, posters, anything. I mean, I'm just inspired by a lot of it. And I feel like that's really important as well. I mean, a movie is great and all, but I pull so many inspirations. I think also another thing, just reading is so important.
Yes.
So important because there's so many good stories out there on paper that people are just like, oh, if it's not a movie. I know so many people who are like, I don't have time to read. I'm like, oh, you should. There's so many good books out there.
Yes. That's you're making me think of, recently I've been down like a Robert Eggers like thing. Mm-hmm. I just really like a lot of elements of his films, like the dark fantasy in general. I enjoy that. I just enjoy immersion, like we talked about earlier.
Sure.
Anything's just totally what it is, and it hits its personal goal, right? It's like a 10 to me. He is constantly doing everything but watching movies. I mean, maybe he's watching a lot of movies. Sorry, Robert. But it's all these tales from like hundreds of years ago that he's turning into films, and I'm like, gosh, I need to be doing more of that. It's like looking outside of this industry altogether, and I'm so glad that you do that. I think sometimes I'll watch a film and I'll think, well, but what if? And then I'll write an idea, and I'm like, but probably someone else is watching that and thinking that. But you can get such more unique ideas when you look at a painting or you read a book, and then you think of a film or a commercial because of that. And I think that's something that a lot of people I know could work on, especially myself. So I'm super glad that you said that. You were about to say something there.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, Eggers and everything, the guy who did Nosferatu and everything, The Lighthouse and everything. I love The Lighthouse. Haven't seen Nosferatu, but, in terms of like a story, he also is inspired by a lot of things. As you said, I don't know if you've seen it, he painted Nosferatu. He made a painting. I mean, he took the time, hours and hours of work to basically say, this is how I want it to feel and everything. And he did if you see it, you're like, wow, this guy is talented. So he was obviously inspired by old paintings as well. And he goes, this is the vibe we're going for. And he showed a painting instead of frame set images or probably like some treatment or something, which is just really fascinating as well. He took the time, he understands, he knows what he wants it to look like.
That's super cool. I had no idea. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, you're going to have to check it out. It's really cool.
Wow. Yeah, I've never thought about making my own treatment that's a different medium.
Yeah.
To plan for something, right? Like if we're doing sound, painting just one still of it. My girlfriend, Izzy, she's a painter, and I try to draw inspiration from what she does, and I'm trying to get better at that myself. And like just looking out into the world and thinking, what other hobbies, what other art could I do or at least take in to build what I do? One of my favorite film ideas. I tried to do that. I was driving down the street and I was like, let's not talk about movies and let's write a movie, And as soon as I did that, I wrote a better movie in my head that I ever had, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that's a big point for a lot of people out there. Like if I were just to give advice, is to get away from the computer, get away from films. Don't watch a film for a month. Go do something else. And
yeah, it's really, it's the world we live in. Everything, that's where the stories come from, right? In terms of like getting inspired. It's again, it's really about the relationships you have with people and the memories you have and the things you look back on and why they work, in my experience at least, why they work the way that they do, everything. And I think a good director, let alone a good creator, can examine those relationships and say, this is what I like about it, and this is what I want to share with other people. So
yeah, I've learned a lot about a good director versus a great director, a good producer versus a great producer, and truly what they're all about. And I don't know all the answers. I don't think I could be one, but that's okay. We're not all of us are meant to be everything. No. But I can see one from afar now. Right. It's like, no, that person means what they're saying. This person has done the all-encompassing research. I've been thinking about bringing it back to life. We're musicians, obviously. That's what we do. But I have my own personal music that I've spent so much time thinking about and making little versions of, but never releasing an actual song yet, because I wanted to slow down and not get so stuck in how fast can I make songs, what can I make it sound like, what will people want to listen to, what's the look they want. And I've created this character called Nico Cauldron, and before I feel like I can make Nico Cauldron's music, I need to be Nico Cauldron for a little bit. Off the screen, take off the headphones. What would Nico Cauldron be doing right now?
Sure.
So I don't know, just a random little nugget that I don't talk about a lot, but I was really getting into it and getting something right until consistency started to fall down, because that's tough. It took a lot of my time outside of things that pay me,
Sure, yeah. As it always is, right? It's like passion projects and then paid projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we right now we're doing a good mix of both, I would say. Because I hope we're always doing that. I hope we're always helping out friends in the other room on something they need, and at every level, because I never want to give up like the true artistry of what we do.
Yeah.
I never want to, sometimes I felt like I've fallen into a business owner mindset, or I fall into I'm a technical editor and I'll clean up your dialogue and, get the noise out and get the levels right. But then I'm like, okay, but there's so much feel to this.
Right.
How do you navigate technicality versus artistry Do you find yourself searching cameras a lot? Like my YouTube is just like camera this, camera that, microphone this, microphone that. But then I'll find myself like forgetting that the true meaning of what I'm working on is like the art at it. Where are you at on that scale?
Well, I definitely think like technical effects artistry. I mean, I have a prime set of Pentax Super Takumar lenses and everything. They're like M42s and then converted to EF. And I love those things. And, I describe those lenses as they produce an image that is similar to a memory you think fondly of. They're warm, they're just a little bit soft, but they're sharp where they need to be. And I really think that, it's important to know the technical aspects so you can get the most artistry out of it. Like knowing your camera's, dynamic range on the sensor and everything, all the functions, everything. And some of the rigs that people come up with and that I've seen online is just incredibly impressive. And those rigs are made with the art in mind. How do we get this shot that produces this similar feeling to what we want? And they build this whole thing. And I really think they go hand in hand. It's hard to do one without the other, right? Because if you have like a beautiful set of lenses and everything, but you don't know how they operate and everything, you don't know, shooting at f/22, everything will be in focus. When you don't want that, it's going to be detrimental to the art,
right,
if you don't know the technical. So I think you have to know both in this field.
Yeah, definitely. You have to, but you can't fall too far one way or the other,
right,
or you're gonna feel that too.
I think you're gonna get stuck and everything if you move one way or the other, and you're just constantly gonna say, oh, I can't do this yet because of this. You kind of get into that analysis paralysis, right, where you're just constantly reviewing and looking and waiting for something better, the camera that has this function and this lens that needs this, or all sorts of stuff that are like hindering to you, but you want to create as well, and then you're just like constantly stopping yourself because the technical isn't right. So
if you were in a different field than this altogether, what do you think you would be doing?
A completely different field?
Completely different field. You can't do this anymore.
I would probably be... I'd probably be an author. I like to write. I love stories. And, for as little as I read, I do enjoy reading. And I feel like that's where my heart is storytelling and narrative work. And being able to put out, my brother is an author, or he's about to be. He's been working on a book for a long time, and he's almost to the point now where it's it'll be published. And it's for him to be able to put down 550 pages of a story is just really incredible to me. And I would love to be able to write 550 pages of such an engrossing, in-depth story. So I would say probably an author, probably a murder mystery author,
Nice.
Yeah, definitely something along the lines of detective work or something like that.
So even if you couldn't do what you're doing now, you would still be a storyteller. That's who you are at the core.
Yeah, I think so, and everything. That, or I will just say one more thing, maybe a comedian. I mean, I really feel like I have a unique sense of humor, even though it may not show up on this at all and everything. I do love to make people laugh, and I do love making jokes. I love finding out what people find funny and what's humorous. I've been doing that all my life, even as a kid. I just loved to make people smile and laugh. Not in terms of like thinking highly of myself, but I just loved seeing people's eyes light up when you told a good joke. So yeah, probably one of those two things. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Because I don't know, there's two different schools of thought of like, would you do as much as you could to stay as close to what you were doing, or would you just go do something the opposite? weirdly enough, my mind would go to like opposite, right? If I can't do this.
Well, yeah, what would you do?
I don't know. Maybe something where I'd really be using my hands. I don't know how much we have to get into this or not, but sometimes I worry that like what I do isn't that important to human life, right? Like I'm not building the roads and I'm not saving lives.
Sure.
But I worked for a ministry for a while editing, and that felt like I was doing good work. So I was spreading news and I was spreading, like you said with your thing, like you're making people aware of important things, and that's what we can do. And like passing on stories and messages, I'm trying to come to terms with, is super important. Keeping art in people's like this bland world out there, sometimes a 9-to-5, thing. It's like, I don't know about you, but I watch a movie at the end of the day, it's like I'm in a whole nother world. Like,
sure.
I'm not even a sound guy. I'm just a guy who wants to tell a story. I'm good at sound. And I know that's a big part of it. That's how I see myself. So part of me is like, if I couldn't do this, I'd want to do the opposite. And part of me is like you, where I'd want to stick with it somehow. I have some general engineering background, like acoustic and AV engineering. And it's like, would I do that? Or is that just too close, but not on the point that I would always be? Would remind me every day what I'm not working on.
Right.
So
yeah, always what could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. You say like, I don't know if I'm doing anything that's important. I made a rattlesnake documentary, and with a conservancy group out in Georgia called the Orient Society. Great group of people. What they do is amazing. I did this documentary for them where we basically, I don't want to say hunted rattlesnakes, but we looked for rattlesnakes in southern Appalachia for days and got, all this great footage. And we talked about, conserving rattlesnakes and, how they're like unjustly persecuted. And that was really kind of a main message. It was like, just because they're venomous, everything doesn't mean you need to kill them outright. And it has like 50,000 views on YouTube, and all the comments are really nice, and I'm like, is this really going to affect anybody? Is this really going to change anyone's mind? And I didn't think about it. And then a week ago, I had a meeting with some people to do some video, and I got up and we left, and he goes, "Oh, hey, by the way," and I look at him and he goes, I think he meant to say, he's like, "I ordered a rattlesnake hoodie or something, or membership or something." I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I watched your rattlesnake documentary. You've convinced me." He goes, "I'm not gonna hurt them anymore." And I was like, "Really?" I would go, "That's great." And it's just like that one comment, that one person, who I was able to help, and help the conservancy, help the group, and then also I was able to change his mind that, a rattlesnake shouldn't just be, killed just because you see it and it's in your area, and it was just kind of, I was like, oh, wow, there's that one thing that keeps you going, right? Oh, yeah, that's right. I am doing this for a reason. Even if it's one person, it still means a lot.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's exactly the type of thing I want to happen on the projects I work on, because we get so tedious when we spend so much time on it, and we either believe it ourselves or don't. And I think that shows when people watch. It's like, did they believe it? Because if they believe it, the viewers are probably going to believe it too. I mean, that's the first step, is that. So I hope as we continue moving forward, we work on things that, whether it's something like that, it's like a good cause, or whether it's just the way people think and the way they, like if it's just a fantasy that lets you get out of your head for an hour, I just hope we impact people in some sort of way, because that's so important to me, I've found. It's
I completely
let's
agree.
not just turn it off when we're done and move on to the next thing. Let's leave something that sticks with people.
Yeah, we feel something, and we feel like we need to share it because it's important to us, and we want other people to know how important it is to us ultimately and to them, right? We're connecting with people, and we want them to see a film as like a reflection on themselves. Oh, I feel that same exact way, and I didn't know it until I saw this person who cares so much about this thing or this topic or this theme or this subject, and that's, I think, as a filmmaker, a creator, director, cinematographer, that's really what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Totally. It's even as creators, when we see like the putting it together side of things, I love being on set and finding myself in a place I would never be, like a motorcycle bar or something, and seeing just as
I
an
saw
example.
that. Yeah.
And it's like, I wouldn't have known what this life is like unless I was here. And I get to see other people get obsessed with their hobbies. Like we did some work with like a coffee shop, and this guy is, it's just coffee, pour you a coffee.
Sure.
But then down in the basement, this dude's like obsessed with it and like getting the perfect strain. I don't remember.
Sure,
and like, it's just so important to him. It was just so cool to see like someone that's just truly into this. And I'm like, wow, I'm into what I'm into, and you're into what you're into. And we connected even though we had nothing to do with each other, because we just loved what we were doing. And like, I hope the viewers feel that way too when they're watching it back. Even if it's not their thing, they learn something, like the rattlesnakes, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know anything about rattlesnakes, but I want to see someone who does,
Right.
and talk about it.
Right.
So
I didn't know anything about them really either. And then as we did these interviews and we found people to talk about, and then getting shots of them and everything, it really opened my eyes as well. I was like, and then when it came to put it together, the documentary and the edit, the editor and I sat down and we talked, and we said, this is important. And it's amazing how shooting it, we both felt, we needed to tell this story and it be from a place of sympathy, just because even if a koala bear was venomous, it's like cute and cuddly, right? But you're like, oh, it's cute and cuddly. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But just because it has scales and everything in those eyes or a rattle, you're like, we have to kill it. It's kind of a weird mental shift. So you don't have to put that in, but I was just thinking.
No, I think that's good. I mean, that's just a good lesson about life in general. That can mean a lot of deeper things. So let's wrap it up with talking about the future real quick.
Sure.
And what your hopes and dreams are. Like right now, you said you're doing a lot of different types of projects, which is cool, like we said. Are you hoping to hone in on one type of thing in the next, I don't know how far forward you think on this show. Some people think 5 years ahead and some people only think 1 year ahead. I mean, I don't really think that far ahead right now, personally, but what about you? What about future for you?
I think in the next 5 years, I haven't been putting out a lot of film work, like short films or documentary work, but I would like to put out something. I have 2 ideas in mind. I'm shooting a documentary with my friend who has a really rare eye disease. Incredibly rare. Not a lot of people have it in the world. It's a very strange eye disease, and I've known him my entire life pretty much, and I would love to make that and have people be aware of the eye disease and how it affects him and other people. And I also have a short film idea that I would love to create. It involves a lot of matte paintings, so it would be an actual movie, but then a lot of it would be painted on glass in front and behind everything, and kind of like a unique story, kind of like a surreal story. And I would like either one of those. Far off chances to get in probably one of the top 5 or the big 5, I think they're called, like film festivals. So it's like TIFF, and then Sundance, and then the other 3. I
recognize them if I see them, but I don't know.
Right, yeah. So I would like for it to get into Sundance. I already had a film turned down by Sundance, and I thought that was a great honor that I just was able to submit something. To be honest, I was like, oh my gosh, I made something. I know it's not going to get in, but I was so excited just to submit it. And I knew it wasn't going to get in, and it didn't. And I was just so happy still when I got turned down.
That's a great attitude.
Yeah. I was like, I did it. I made it. I made something. And so hopefully, though, in the next 5 years, I'll have like one of these 2 ideas kind of go through the film festival circuit. So because I would like to move on to more feature work and get out of the short documentary, short films.
Very cool. Well, I'm rooting for you. We're rooting for you here at Gaussian and Shift and everything. Thanks so much for coming on. This
has been great. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. It's awesome to have like people who are serious about what they do on the show, because you don't always meet people every day who are truly serious about what they're doing. But like people like you, I can tell you believe in the stuff you're working on.
Well, thank you.
And you're making a difference.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, man. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks.
And until next time.